In this third fractal video, we will review some techniques and learn some new ones in order for you to create your own fractal art assignment. This is in the folder in Blackboard. I wanted to draw your attention first to the completed dragon fractal by a student from last year, and this is what you should be attempting to achieve. Below this, there is a blue Student Fractal Art slideshow link. Make sure that you go through that to get an idea of what can be done for this particular project to create your own fractal art. For today, we're going to start in Illustrator. We're going to start with one of either your Sierpinski triangle or your Koch snowflake. We are going to make a brush out of this, take it into Photoshop, and then I will go through certain steps to show you how you can begin to create your own fractal artwork. So the first thing we're going to do in Illustrator, I chose to do the Sierpinski triangle. You may do this with the Koch snowflake. But the first thing I'm going to do is use the selection tool, the black arrow, and marquee select over the Sierpinski triangle. Command or Control C, and then go into Photoshop, go File, New, and as you can see, clipboard will be highlighted. We're going to take what's on the clipboard. Make sure you change your color mode to RGB, and then click Create. And I'll do Command or Control 0, fits in window, and then do Command V and paste your Illustrator fractal paste it in as pixels. When it comes in, it will be on its own layer, and you'll see this X. Immediately hit return, and the image is now pixels on layer 1, which I right away double click the layer name. I'm going to call this triangle, and hit return to fix the name. Next thing we're going to do is to prepare for our exercise. I want to make a new layer on top of the triangle, and this way you're going to get a chance to see how you can create different colored backgrounds. I'm going to double click this one. I'm just going to say black and hit return, and we're going to go to Edit, Fill, and Contents, make it black, and go OK. Now hide that layer. Now we're OK. Next thing, we're going to enable the black layer, add a layer on top of that, and double click that, and I'll do this. I'll just call this one Frac 1 and hit return. This is going to be where we're going to experiment with our making our fractal. Now enable the triangle layer, or if you've done the snowflake, you may do that. Make sure that that's active. Make sure you're in the move tool. Point your mouse to the thumbnail, hold down the command or the control, click, and select the pixels. Everybody should have the pixels selected. And incidentally, if whatever you're doing, make sure it is in black and white. Go to Edit, Define Brush Preset, and you're going to see Sampled Brush, and it'll be a number, and it will show you that it will display whichever fractal you have. Mine is going to be this triangle. Now I'm going to click OK. Now there, it's showing you the brush has taken the form of the fractal of the triangle. In my case, I'm going to hit the left bracket key and make the brush smaller. And now I'm going to enable my black layer, turn it on. I'm going to now go into the fractal layer right here, and I am going to Command D and deselect. So right now I have a brush loaded. Now as soon as I define the brush preset, Photoshop sent me to the brush tool, at which time I wanted to make it fit into my document, so I used the left bracket key to make the brush smaller and the right bracket key to make it bigger. Now the next step is for you to choose a color. Now I intentionally made a black layer so that you'll be able to work with brighter colors and work on trying to get them, give you some depth in your final design. So let's first, just to show you the basic steps, I'm going to make this a little bit smaller, and I chose a yellow color, and I'm going to stamp this brush once. Now at this point I'm going to go to my move tool like so, and as you can see, we now have a yellow triangle, one fractal on our screen. And in keeping with the definition of a fractal, where we're going to repeat a simple geometric form in various degrees of scale, we're going to show you different ways to do this in Photoshop. Now, the first thing we're going to do is make sure you're in the selection tool, point to the thumbnail, command and click. So you selected the pixels on that layer. The next step is to do Option, Command, T. If you're on a PC, it'll be Alt, Control, T. Now, you have, keep in mind that we started with a selection. This is important because it will keep whatever you're doing on one layer. If you didn't select it, every adjustment you make, every iteration you create will create a new layer, and that would get terribly tedious. So now the next thing we're going to do, since we have a transform dialog box around our pixels, you can do one of three things. You can do all three things right now. For example, I'm going to take my mouse, I'm going to move this, I'm going to rotate this once. I'm going to move it up a little bit. That's two operations. And now for this demonstration, I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. So I'll point to a corner anchor point, hold down the shift, and make it smaller. I release my mouse, I release the shift key. Then I press return to apply the transformation. Now comes the magic. You're going to, with your left hand, do Shift, Option, Command. That's fourth finger, third finger on the Option, second finger on the Command, and then hit T. And you will continue to power duplicate your form, and in this case, because I had scaled it, it's getting smaller and smaller. Now I'm going to release my keys, and you can't see it because it's so small, but there is something still selected. So go Command D and deselect. That gives you your first idea of how to work with the fractal using these keystroke commands. So keep in mind, the very first thing we did was Option Command T, and then we did Shift Option Command T to do all of the adjustments, all of the new little ones. Now I'm going to repeat the process again, and this time I'm going to go back to Illustrator. And now that we're in Illustrator, I'm going to review a different way to make a brush. Instead of doing it with the triangle or the snowflake, we're going to make another more organic form. And let's try this first. I'm going to go here and I will do Object, Hide my selection. And now I want everybody to grab your pen tool, and I want you to draw a Bezier curve like an open S. So we'll go click, click and drag, click and drag like that. Now you want to make this curve, we want to fill, we want the stroke to be black, and we want the fill to be none. Now go to the selection tool, the black arrow, and you select the path you just did. So it's a simple way to create a form, and a lot of students like to do this to create a brush. And in keeping with the idea of a fractal, you're going to start with something really simple, and it's going to appear to be very complicated as you reproduce it. So the next thing we're going to do is point to the path, hold down the Option, and drag a clone like so. Now, just so you don't get confused, I'm going to take these and delete them. Okay, now I want to go over, the next thing we're going to do is blend between these two paths. And I'm going to go to the blend tool. And the blend tool is oftentimes, oh, there it is. The blend tool is found on the tool panel in the right column. If it's not there, you're going to see 3 dots and you have to locate it. The blend tool sits by itself, and it says W is the keystroke to bring up the blend tool. So I'm going to click on the blend tool like this. I'm going to double click it, and it brings up the blend options. At this point, I want spacing to be specified steps. And for this lesson, let's just start with something simple. Let's go 8 steps and go OK. Now, once you have specified what you want to do, you have to target your object. So I'm going to click on this. First, I'm going to go Command and click on this path. Hold down the Shift and click on that path. Now I'm going to take my blend and target the same anchor point on each of the paths. So I'm going to go here, 1, and then here, 2. So we now, as you can see, we're blending 8 steps between the 2 paths. Now the fun thing about this one is, is following. Go Shift Command A to deselect. Now take your white arrow, which is your direct selection tool, and point to your object. Now I just pointed to a point on my blend. Now you can move this around and watch what happens. And you can move this around. Every time you do this, you are creating a different, you're interacting with this ribbon. So right now, just practice pointing to different points and making adjustments to the points and the direction levers. And you will see that you can get all kinds of strange, interesting shapes. And I'm just going to leave mine like that. And I'm going to go to my black arrow, the selection tool, and click outside so nothing is selected. So at this point, we're going to select our blend, go Command C, copy, go into Photoshop, and let's see what happens if we keep this thing open. I don't know if this is going to work, but we'll give it a try. I'm going to hide the black so I can see what it's doing. I'm going to hide this. and I'll hide this. Now I'll enable the background layer, and just for fun I will copy the background layer, and now I'm going to do Command V, paste. It's going to paste my Illustrator ribbon form as pixels, and there it is on layer 1, and I'm just going to call it ribbon. Return. Okay, now we were going to do the same thing with the ribbon as we did with the triangle. So go to your move tool, point your mouse to the thumbnail, hold Command and click, and then go edit, define brush preset. And it will take the form of the ribbon and go OK. So now you have a ribbon form. At this point, let's go up to File, Save As, and call this one Fractal or Personal Fractal or My Fractal, and put it somewhere where you can retrieve it.